get more analysis and bring in Dr. Akshay Deoras, research scientist at the National Centre for Atmospheric Science at the University of Reading in southern England. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Akshay. This situation here, it's clearly deeply tragic what is happening. People point to climate change. Clearly the monsoon season's adding its own special layer of chaos as well. And then on top of that, certain local officials, the finger pointed at them. It is a very deadly cocktail that has happened.
That's absolutely right. See, we need weather systems to cause damages like this. And at the time, we have the monsoon, which is known to bring a lot of rainfall. But on top of that, we did have two tropical cyclones brewing in the same region. On top of that, we have climate change. And on top of that, we have a very bad local response when it comes to disaster management. This makes it a very deadly cocktail, I'm afraid.
So in terms of what happens with the weather, with what you can see, what you can predict, is there anything that we can actually do to stop that happening? I mean, clearly, in a sense, we're at the hands of nature, aren't we?
That's right. We are at the hands of nature, but at the same time, weather forecasts have improved quite a lot compared to what we had, let's say, a decade ago. So now we are in a situation where we are able to better predict these cyclones or even monsoon rainfall, let's say for a couple of days in advance. So what really matters is when we have a very clear forecast of heavy rainfall, how do you really prepare? Do you really take out people from, let's say, most vulnerable areas where landslides are expected or where flash flooding will happen? So these tiny responses are very important, and unless and until we have them correctly, we are not going to stop the damage, especially deaths.
So that changes the emphasis from the weather and the natural disaster to the organisational problems and the issues perhaps where the local officials didn't do the job as some people say it should have been done. Is one of the issues, Dr. Akshay, that there isn't enough money to actually spend on the things that need to be done in such places? As ever, it's the poorest in the world who get hit the worst when things go wrong.
Absolutely right. I mean, if something like this would have happened, let's say in the UK or in the US, the response would have been better, which means the number of deaths would have been much less. So this is a very complicated problem because, on one hand, you need to make people aware of the disaster. So you need to invest in, let's say, real-time information dissemination system or real-time warning dissemination system. And at the same time, you also need to ensure that you have got adequate place to keep people whenever these damages are going to happen. So poor countries are really, really hard hit whenever disasters like this happen. And I'm afraid this is not going to stop.
It sounds like what you're saying is that people need to start to wake up to the fact that they need to change how they live, change how they structure their lives, change how they build their towns and cities in order to cope with these natural disasters.
That's right, because see, we cannot stop natural disasters, but let's say if you are constructing houses just next to a river or next to mountains which are vulnerable to mudslides or flash floods, then you would certainly expect people to die because of all these disasters. And we know that climate change is intensifying the occurrence and intensity of extreme rainfall events, be it flash floods. So the focus has to shift from, let's say, just like talking about climate change to really dealing with it on the ground, because we are seeing it happening. So you need to keep people away from vulnerable areas, and you have got weather forecast to tell them that this is not the right time to stay where you are because you are in danger.
Indeed, it needs to be not an emergency response, but a very cognitive response to what is actually going to happen and we know will eventually take place. I'm wondering now, Dr. Akshay, the situation on the ground, so much water. The possibility, which is horrible to consider, is that disease could follow next. I mean, that is the next great emergency to happen, isn't it?
That's right. It's all linked. It would start with, heavy rainfall, and then you would have flash floods. Then you would have a lot of mud in the region, a lot of water. You have disaster. You have diseases coming in. So that becomes a big disaster because it starts from a hydrological thing and then it becomes really intense. And the big problem is that it takes a very, very, very long time for things to get back to normal because you have to do a lot of cleaning. You have to, improve or let's say repair the damaged infrastructure, be it roads or power lines or houses. And it takes quite a lot of money. So it's not going to be that straightforward when it comes to restoring lives back to normal, I'm afraid.
I'm getting from what you're saying, there are two things happening here. There needs to be that response to the emergency situation right now, on the ground, people in water, houses underwater, but also looking towards the future and constructing in the broader sense in a more, I don't know, in a smarter way.
That's right, because like I said, all these things are not going to stop. Today it's southern Thailand, tomorrow it could be some other country in South Asia because we cannot stop the monsoon. And we know that with climate change, monsoon rainfall is going to become more and more extreme when it comes to, heavy rainfall like this. So I think it's very important that we take lessons from disasters like this. We really start thinking about constructions, like where not to do constructions, and if we are basically in a situation that our forecasts are doing well, we need to ensure that forecasts reach to let's say last mile on the ground, like it really goes down to the people on the ground. And unless and until all this thing happens, I'm afraid we are not going to be able to stop deaths.
Dr. Akshay Deoras, thank you very much indeed for joining us, research scientist at the National Centre for Atmospheric Science at the University of Reading. Thank you, sir. And let's hope those people underwater in Asia are being helped in the best possible way they can going forward. Dr.